I just spent 14 hours in Virgin Atlantic Premium Economy on their longest route ever, and I'm not sure I'd have appreciated upper class much more. That's a strange thing to say, because I had points to book upper for just 26,000 more outright, and chose not to. It got stranger still. Getting onto this flight actually took 2 days longer than it should have, for reasons I'll get into, and by the time I did board, I had zero choice of seat and no windows. Welcome back to Seoul. This time I'm putting Virgin's award-winning premium product on a proper test, on the newest and longest route in their network. If you didn't know already, Virgin is Britain's second long-haul carrier after BA. Virgin's route history has been colourful, but not in any growth-focused way. It primarily serves the USA, India and Caribbean holiday destinations. It used to serve Hong Kong, Tokyo and Shanghai, but has since stopped all three. It now serves the likes of the Maldives and Phuket, and as of May 2026, Seoul. How long this Seoul route lasts is anyone's guess, so I thought I'd better fly it before it's gone. I imagine they get decent feeder traffic from Korean Air to help sustain it. A fun fact before we get going, Virgin is an early pioneer of premium economy, alongside EVA Air, offering it since 1992. The screen sent me the wrong check-in area entirely, all the way along to the A desks, when Virgin was actually operating out of K on the opposite end. It was great to see Virgin had separate premium check-in counters here too. That's not a given outside an airline's home hub. And there weren't many people around, so check-in was swift. Seoul Airport runs a Smart Pass security system, offering expedited transit by scanning your face if you've pre-registered. Not every gate supports it, so how useful it is depends on your flight, but regular security was quick enough anyway. Virgin Premium doesn't come with lounge access, so with more than 2 hours to kill, I decided to make use of my priority pass. But first, a bit of plane spotting. It's still fascinating to me that a country the size of South Korea has 2 major full-service airlines and both fly A380s. For better or worse, these 2 carriers are merging by the end of this year, and neither A380 currently flies to London. I checked out one of the Sky Hub lounges near Gate 68. It's a very standard contract lounge, essentially a big canteen. Catering was better than most European or US contract lounges, but it's not a place to relax, even with some decent tarmac views. This is honestly a pretty swish airport. It's no Changi, but I appreciated the minimalism, with some nice touches, trees, fresh flowers, a few sculptures as intentional design features to boot. That Asiana, a 380 in the background, is about to head off to Los Angeles, one of the routes it still flies, alongside New York and some rotations to Tokyo Narita. Korean Air's new livery looks equally minimal, and I like it. And finally, a first glimpse of the Boeing 787-9 that would fly us to London. Blocked at 14 hours, it's by far the longest flight Virgin Atlantic has ever operated. There was ample time for more plane spotting, including Korean Air's latest 747, the Queen of the Skies. Only 2 major carriers still fly this aircraft, the other being Lufthansa. Unfortunately, all was not looking good with our flight. Some technical issue meant boarding was pushed back an hour and a half. I went for a walk, came back for the new departure time. But when that new boarding time came and went too, the tension in the gate area started to build. Passengers were speculating amongst themselves about what the issue actually was. After a long back and forth between ground staff and the agents, the cockpit crew came back out into the terminal. I half expected an announcement, but there was another 15 minutes of them talking amongst themselves before we were finally told the flight was cancelled. This was my first ever cancellation with Virgin. The communication could have been better. Some passengers were already handed food vouchers for the delay, others were told to wait to be rebooked into hotels, even though the flight had then been expected to leave around 11 PM some 10 hours later. I think they did their best in a bad situation, but it wasn't a smooth process. After almost 6 hours in the airport, we were finally split into groups and put on buses to hotels. Except the buses took another 2 hours, since the hotel wasn't anywhere near the centre or the airport. By the time we arrived past 7 PM, I was so exhausted I fell fast asleep within minutes of getting into my room. My flight was eventually rebooked 2 days later. I tried hard to get onto the earlier option, but all options provided with Korean and Virgin itself was already overbooked. I didn't fancy wasting another day sitting in the airport chasing a seat that might not come. This time I checked out the Matina lounge instead, much more pleasant after the morning rush. And it's time to board for the second time. Same gate area, one level down this time. Thankfully, everything ran smoothly. Our aircraft today was named Lady Freedom, an 8-year-old frame named by Branson himself in honour of Nelson Mandela. As you'd expect, after a cancellation, this flight was completely full and overbooked. Virgin doesn't have the luxury of pulling in a spare aircraft to absorb a disruption like this, which meant I had zero choice of seat. Every seat was already taken by the time I got my new booking confirmed. You won't see my usual window shots or my usual taxi and takeoff footage. For the first time in a long while, I was stuck in a middle aisle seat with no view out at all. Virgin's 787s feature 35 Zodiac Aerospace premium seats in a 232 configuration. What I like about this setup, beyond the industry standard 38-inch pitch, is the comfort and width, almost 20 inches, which puts you close to business class territory for sitting and lounging. Virgin is retrofitting these cabins with an even more premium seats going forward, so this is only going to become a bigger part of the Virgin brand. Waiting at my seat was a wrapped blanket, pillow, menu, and amenity kit. Compared to Virgin's newer A350s and A330 Neos, the IFE screen here does feel smaller, but I'd take a bigger, more comfortable seat over a bigger screen any day. One thing premium economy doesn't really offer is dedicated storage. That said, the seatback literature pouch is deep enough to hold a fair few small items, amenity kits, mini purchases, that sort of thing. So, because the seats themselves are wide, the armrests are narrower than you'd find on something like United or BA with their cocktail tables. While everyone settled in, we were offered welcome drinks, which was a choice of sparkling wine or juice. The amenity bag is paper and about as classy as the upper class ones, more on that later. Headphones were basic, but still better than what Emirates hands out and comfortable enough. We departed right on time, no issues on this day. Twitchy in my middle seat, I had to get creative just to catch a glimpse out the window. After a smooth takeoff, it was time to settle in. Here's what the official menu offered, though there was more to keep you satisfied than what's actually printed on it. What genuinely surprised me was how fast service started. Exactly 16 minutes after wheels up, I timed it. First came refreshing towels, more of a hot wet wipe than a proper hot towel, but hot and refreshing all the same. Then drinks and a small nibble. I went for a simple cranberry juice. Lunch followed about 20 minutes later. I chose the spicy Korean chicken, served with a kimchi salad starter, warm bread, a cheese plate with apricot pickle, and a jeju green tea mousse for dessert. It was every bit as good as it looked. The main course smelled incredible. The salad was excellent, and that dessert wouldn't have looked out of place in first class. My one real gripe, the main course portion was small, almost a child's size. I could have easily eaten 3 of them. After lunch I asked for lemon tea, served in a proper mug, the kind of small detail that makes premium actually feel premium. Time to see what Virgin's entertainment system, Vera, had on offer in its latest selection. Maybe it's because I fly a fair bit, but I didn't find much that grabbed me. Vera has never been the most extensive system out there, but on a 14-hour stretch, that limitation suddenly felt a lot more real. My backup entertainment, as always, was the flight map. It was dated and far less interactive than newer systems, but reliable. I also enjoy revisiting old classics, especially ones featuring vintage first-class cabins. It's always great to keep perspective. Here's a look at the cabin mid-flight, most people resting or quietly entertaining themselves. For snacks, there's the Wonder Wall, a shared amenity between upper class and premium, positioned between the two cabins. You'll find a good variety of crisps, mini chocolate bars and noodle pots, though I'd love to see something more substantial, like sandwiches or similar, especially on a flight this long. The 2 dedicated premium restrooms were kept in good order throughout, with crew cleaning them multiple times during the flight. Back at my seat, here's what was in the amenity kit, a fairly standard set for a good economy long-haul carrier: eye mask, flight socks, earplugs, dental kit, appreciated if you're trying to actually get some rest. I tried to settle in and get some shut-eye. The seat has a multi-level footrest, though I found it clunky. It worked once, then twice failed to budge from the lower position. Here's the seat fully reclined, though bear in mind filming was tricky, given how packed the cabin was on every side of me. It reclines a solid 7 inches, not earth-shattering, but still a real step up from economy towards something closer to a real lounger. It was around this point I found a genuine problem. My phone wouldn't charge anywhere, not the USB on the IFE, not the universal outlet by my feet. I flagged it to the crew, who immediately recognised it as a known fault. They tried resetting my IFE, no luck, and then offered to charge my phone in the one spare upper class seat on the flight instead. A small moment, but it tells you something about how the crew handle problems for a positive outcome. After a couple of hours of half sleep, not quite tired enough to properly drop off, a snack service came round. A hot vegetarian burrito, genuinely delicious, nicely spiced, and a welcome hot bite mid-flight. To balance that out, the crew were excellent throughout the flight, doing drinks and refreshment rounds almost every hour mid-flight, clearly aware some passengers would be resting at different times, and occasionally handing out chocolate brownies and cookies that weren't even part of the Wonder Wall selection. About 3 films in and a lot of flight map watching later, the crew served the pre-landing meal 2.5 hours out from London. There were meant to be 3 choices: roasted halibut, grilled chicken, or vegetable bibimbap. But they'd run out of halibut by the time they reached me in row 2, so I went with the chicken. Tasty and well executed, but by now a clear pattern had emerged. Lunch, the burrito, this meal, all excellent, all noticeably small. During this service, I gave up trying to find anything new on Vera and put on a Bollywood film instead, watched entirely with subtitles. It was light and rather entertaining and reminded me how beautiful Hindi sounds, especially in the musical numbers, in a way few other languages match. Just as the film wrapped up, our 14-hour flight was almost done. And here's the real flex of Virgin Premium. Across 14 hours, I simply didn't feel it. No drag, no aches, none of the wear that builds up after hours in a cramped economy seat, or even a lesser premium economy product. This seat is comfortable enough that it genuinely makes 14 hours feel like less than it is. The catering was excellent, and yes, portions ran small throughout, but that's a complaint that follows you into upper class too. For instance, this was a second meal on a 10-hour upper class flight I was served last year. And honestly, I'd rather spend 14 hours in this premium cabin in a proper window seat, like I originally had before the cancellation, than 14 hours in an aging, awkward upper class cabin, when I have no real need to sleep anyway. So there it is. Given the choice again, I'd fly Virgin Premium on plenty of routes and save my points or cash. Of course, there are other things in upper class that I enjoy, such as the bar on this aircraft, which is a real selling point. This flight was booked with Virgin points about 4 months ahead for 32,000 points, plus around £250 in taxes plus surcharges. Initially, Virgin had quite reasonable pricing, but that quickly shot up, so since moving to dynamic pricing, upper class in particular can have insane pricing across the network, to the point where majority of the time you're better off paying 3,000 cash. For this reason, I do believe premium becomes ever more attractive. Of course, for a long overnight flight, I'd still want to fly upper class for the bed. But for a daylight like this, it was not just manageable, it was rather enjoyable that I believe premium is as good as upper class. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe, it would help out a lot. Thank you for watching, till next time, happy flying.